18 days. Let me everyone understand Gita in 18 days, organized by ISKCON Mangaluru in India. We will be discussing one chapter at a time of Bhagavad Gita. There are 18 chapters, and this is an overview. This is not a detailed course. Not every verse is discussed. Overview of the whole book, so that you get more interest in learning more. After you graduate from this course, you will be invited to join the level 2 course. This is level 1, entry level, where we will discuss again Bhagavad Gita and 3 other books, but in a little bit more detail. And then we have made 4 levels, and then over there, if you graduate from there, then you go to level 3, and if you graduate from level 3, then you enter the final course, which is level 4, which is about 1.5 years long. That's how long it takes to understand all these books. So welcome again. I welcome also my friend Rupa Mataji, who's been helping me. She will also be taking your classes here and there. So let's start. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna, Karna Sindhu, Dinbandhu, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika, Kantha, Radha, Kantha, Namastute. Tapta Kanchana, Gaurangi, Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Prishpanusute Devi, Pranamami, Hari Priyai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advait Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If you have any questions, please wait till the end of the class. Please don't write in the Zoom chat, because it probably will be lost with other messages. And then we will give you enough time at the end of the class to ask questions. Okay, so let's start the journey. As a Vaishnava etiquette, we are going to pay obeisances to the founder Acharya, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, before we start the session. Sorry, the name is cut, but it's Understand Gita in 18 days, organized by ISKCON Radha Govinda Temple in Mangaluru. So whatever we are going to discuss is solely going to be based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Actually, in India today is Tirubhav, right? Tirubhav, or his disappearance day. A little bit about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada brought the science of Krishna consciousness to the Western world. And the way he brought it was very unique in itself. This is Prabhupada in 1972 in San Francisco, where he organized the world's first, actually in the history, first Jagannath Rath Yatra in the Western world. Everything was carved out in America. Nothing was brought from India. The deities were carved by his disciples in America. The raths, the 3 rathas, they were made in America. Everything was done over there because they were so empowered by Prabhupada. A little bit about Prabhupada's life. Prabhupada was born in a Vaishnava family. He talks highly about his father, Gaur Mohan Dev. This is Prabhupada when he was a young boy. He tells that he had a desire to conduct Jagannath Rath Yatra in his neighborhood. So he requested his father to buy him the cart, the ratha. So his father bought him the cart, but it needed to be fixed. So he fixed the cart, decorated it, painted it, and then Prabhupada did the Rath Yatra with other children in the neighborhood, and all the mothers made the sweets. So Prabhupada had Vaishnava inclination from the very beginning of his life. In 1922, when Prabhupada was a married man and had a wife and children and was doing business, he met his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in 1933, he took initiation from him, the Harinam initiation. And in 1955, he took the Diksha, the sannyas. He took sannyas, and then he was preaching. Prabhupada was always preaching, even before he was initiated, after he was initiated, and after taking sannyas ashram, he actually relocated to Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan and started transcribing Srimad Bhagavatam. he was working very hard for us. He used to travel in the hot weather from Vrindavan to Delhi to get his books printed. He used to proofread, edit, bind, and distribute. Prabhupada got heat stroke 2 times in the process. It used to be a difficult ride from Vrindavan to Delhi in those times, in 1955-56. Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, had ordered him to take this science of Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking world. That's what Prabhupada wanted to do always. It was not until 1965 that he actually got the chance to do that. Prabhupada was taking Krishna consciousness to major leaders of the society. He wasn't hiding it. He wasn't doing Gupta Bhajan. Gupta Bhajan is like, I'm going to just take care of my own spiritual life in a very isolated place. He wasn't doing that. He was taking it to far and wide to the leaders across the country when he was in India, and he was requesting. He wrote letters to Lal Bahadur Shastri, to Dr. Radhakrishna, to Mahatma Gandhi. He wrote. No one replied. This all is written in Prabhupada's biography, Lilamrita. So, on the order of his spiritual master, he had to come to the Western world. And it was not until 1960, 68, 66, 67 that he actually got the chance, a free ride on a cargo ship. It was not even a passenger ship from Mumbai or from Bombay to travel to New York port. He actually came to Boston, from Boston to New York. He was the only passenger, and he was almost 70 years old at that time. And all he had was his transcribed Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and few other commentaries, and 2 pairs of clothes and 40 rupees. At that time, there was no exchange of currency to Indian currency to a foreign currency. So practically, Prabhupada traveled without any money. Prabhupada got 2 heart attacks in the ship. It was a 28-day journey, 28-day journey. And he was still traveling. It wasn't easy. He did not know anyone either. And he was just based on the faith and of the words of his spiritual master that I got to do this because I've been ordered to do this. Prabhupada started International Society for Krishna Consciousness in New York, in a public park called Tompkinson Square Park. It's a public park. Like if you have a park around where you live and you go for a walk or something, it was like that. So Prabhupada used to sit there with a small drum and chant Hare Krishna Kirtan from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. New York time every day. That's how the ISKCON was started. And the local boys and girls would dance on Prabhupada's Kirtan, and that's how they became interested to know about the science of Krishna consciousness. That was a humble beginning. No big elaboration, no approaches, nothing. It was just Prabhupada and Harinam. Prabhupada gave first public performance of Hare Krishna Kirtan in a hippie concert in western part of America. He was allotted some time to chant. It was a concert for hippies, and Prabhupada's disciples organized Prabhupada to have a time block to do Hare Krishna Kirtan. That was the first public performance. Then Prabhupada was sending his disciples far and wide. These are his disciples in UK. This is George Harrison, who actually was a very sincere follower of Srila Prabhupada. He actually gave an estate to Srila Prabhupada called Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is still there. This is Prabhupada in Moscow. So Prabhupada was taking it everywhere. Prabhupada was talking to prominent leaders of the society across the world. First, he was trying to talk to leaders in India, but everyone gave him a very deaf ear. So he took it to the leaders across the world that someone will hear me. And they did. Prabhupada translated over 70 scriptures for us in English, 70. Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos. Bhagavad Gita that we'll be discussing in all these 18 days. And you will, at the end of the course, you will realize the depth of knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has given us in our calamitous life that we lead. Or so many. Chaitanya Charitamrita has 9 volumes and so many other small books. Prabhupada gave us so much. Prabhupada started the magazine called Back to Godhead because we are very used to reading magazines. So he said, why don't you read magazine about how to go back to Krishna, why to do Prajalpa. This is Srila Prabhupada's timeline. Let's see, from 1965 to 1977.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
So he traveled the globe 12 times, and then wherever he went, he only spoke about Krishna. So much influence. Let's pay our obeisances to Shri Shri Radha Govinda, who are worshipped in ISKCON Mangaluru, before we start the journey into the mysticism of Bhagavad Gita. So we are located right now in Tollgate Kadri, Mangalore, Karnataka. This is all done under the supervision of His Grace Namanishta Das Prabhu. He is my Siksha Guru. He is also the Understand Gita in 18 days, and now at present time, so many other courses that we are offering are his brainchild. So Bhagavad Gita is an epic scripture that has the answers to all our problems. It was considered a spiritual dictionary by Mahatma Gandhi, and it is a book of inspiration for many leaders across the planet. So one book which has answers to all the problems. It answers, actually it does. It actually gives a principle of how to solve a problem. It may not actually solve the problem per se, but there are well-defined principles given on the basis of which we can find solutions. And it is a spiritual dictionary. These are some of the testimonies. Mahatma Gandhi said, those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meanings from it every day. Dr. Einstein said, when I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created everything, created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. Everything else is so superfluous. So why Bhagavad Gita as it is? Why Srila Prabhupada's commentary? Now, there are over 600 translations of Bhagavad Gita floating around in the whole world. But what makes this Bhagavad Gita as it is, the book that we have picked up and has been successfully running the course since June of 2020. So over a year. What makes this? So Prabhupada explains this. For example, if you have a phone, okay, and then you want to charge the phone, but let's say that the cable, the wire is broken. The socket is working, the phone is working, but the wire is broken. Can you charge the phone successfully? Can you do it? Tell me. Can you do that? Can you charge that phone successfully?
No.
No,
No,
Mataji.
No, Mataji.
Because the wire is broken, right? So why? Because it's due to the lack of contact between the source and the receiver. Similarly, the message of Krishna must come via an unbroken chain of disciplic succession. This is the punchline. That if we are reading about Krishna, then what is your reference? Is it somebody's personally motivated interpretation of Krishna's words? Or is it something that Krishna really said? How do you authenticate the statements and translations? How do you authenticate? By looking at that who is teaching who. Right? That happens in college also. How do you know that your teacher is a bona fide teacher? How do you know? You look at that, okay, they have a bona fide degree. Have they gone to a bona fide college? Have they been, did they receive a bona fide certificate? Then, okay, their knowledge is certificate. And it goes back. Like that, in Krishna consciousness, we have to look at that whose translations are we reading? Is it a person's, because somebody has a PhD in philosophy and now they think that they are very big scholars and that's how they have picked up Krishna's words, or is it something which is coming from our disciplic succession? So our Bhagavad Gita in International Society for Krishna Consciousness belongs to Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the disciplic succession. Srila Prabhupada learned this from his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada learned from his spiritual master Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who learned from Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who learned from Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, who learned from like that. You can go back. Comes to Narad Muni, who learned from Lord Brahma, and Brahma learned it from Krishna. So Brahma Gaudiya Madhva Vaishnava Sampradaya, Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Okay, so that is why this is an authentic translation, and Prabhupada named it as Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Gita is a vast book. A systematic study of the Gita will take about a year. In 18 days, we can't do that. So we are focusing on the flow of thoughts between Krishna and Arjun. And the objective is, as I stated in the beginning of the class, to prepare each one of us in the class for a deeper study of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, 700 verses, and these are the prominent speakers. Krishna speaks most of the verses, 574 verses. Arjun speaks about 84. Sanjay speaks 41 verses, and Dhritarashtra speaks 1 verse. Different names by which Krishna, Arjun, and Bhima, interestingly, are addressed. Basically, this is in chapter 1. Most of the names are taken in chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. These are the different these are different names of all of them. There are 5 things which are discussed in Bhagavad Gita as it is. If you actually break down and comes to the what do you call the rasa, the mellow, the 5 things are discussed: Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. Okay, so again, so Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, and Kala are eternal, and Karma is not eternal. It's temporary, manifested and annihilated. So what are the 5 things? Ishvara, which is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Prakriti, which is material nature, the 3 modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Jiva, which is the soul. Kala, which is the time factor. And karma, which is an activity done by a living entity which leads to another material body. This is how karma is defined in chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita. You do an activity and it creates another material body. So this is all discussed, and we will touch upon all of them. Mood of Bhagavad Gita: Arjun's bewilderment and appearance of illusion must be understood to be Krishna's arrangement. You see, if somebody is with Krishna, they cannot be bewildered, right? For example, now you tell me, if somebody is in a very hot sunny afternoon, can they be in the darkness at the same time? They're outside, they're in the hot sun, like sunny afternoon. But can you say that, oh, you're in darkness also, but you're in the sun also? Can they both coexist?
No, Mataji. No, Mataji. No, Mataji.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we unanimously agree that it cannot coexist, darkness and sunlight. So in the same way, if somebody is with Krishna, it is not possible for them to be bewildered and ignorant. Not possible. So Krishna Krishna arranges like that. So Arjuna gets bewildered and asks this question so that he can speak Bhagavad Gita. Krishna wants to speak, and he's going to speak to his best friend, right? So he actually makes him do the role play of a commoner so he can speak. And then we all get benefited along with Arjun. Okay, so if not for Arjun's confusion and bewilderment, there would have been no necessity for Krishna to speak the Bhagavad Gita to rescue him. Although Arjun is the apparent first listener of Bhagavad Gita, it is for the benefit of everyone. Every single person who listens Bhagavad Gita across every single living entity. What is the eligibility criteria to study Bhagavad Gita? Do you know? The answer is very funny. The answer is you got to be an interested human being. That's it. If you are interested and you are in a human form of life, you are eligible to read Bhagavad Gita and understand. There is no other criteria. So Arjun's indecisiveness, Krishna drove the chariot in the midst of both armies, right? We know that there was this great war of Mahabharata, epic war. And it was a war between 2 cousin brothers, Pandavas and Kauravas. And Arjun was about to fight, but then he requested Krishna to bring his chariot in the midst of both the armies. Ratham sthapito me achyuta. Please drive my chariot in the middle of both armies. And when he drove the chariot, when Krishna brought the chariot, Arjun looked at the other party against whom he had to fight, and then he got like, then he gives 5 reasons to Krishna, which we're going to discuss in some time now, that I'm not going to fight. He changes his mind. The whole war is arranged, but then he changes his mind. Krishna drove the chariot in midst of both armies. Arjun was in difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. He surrendered onto Sri Krishna, and consequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So every journey begins with a single step. Let's begin the journey into the mysticism of Gita. So welcome again, everyone. In the holy month of Kartik, we are getting a chance to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. There is no bigger fortune. We might not be able to see it, but actually, eventually, there is no bigger fortune. Like there are 2 words in Sanskrit. Prabhupada explains Shreya and Preya. So one is immediate benefit and one is remote benefit. So it's a remote beneficial. Okay, we're going to listen to Gita Mahatmya, which is written by Adi Shankaracharya. And we will read the translations at the end of 18th chapter. So just maybe listen.
Atha Gita Mahatmya Gita Shastram Idam Punyam Ya Patet Trayata Puman Vishnu Padam Avapnoti Bhaya Shokadivarjita गीताध्ययनशीलस्य प्राणायामा परस्य च नैव सन्ति हि पापानि पूर्वजन्मा कृतानि च मलनिर्मोचनं पुंसा जलस्नानं दिने दिने सकृद्गीताम्भसि स्नानं संसारमलनाशनं गीतासुगीतकर्तव्या किं मन्ये शास्त्रविस्तरे या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुखापद्मादिनिःसृता भारतामृता सर्वस्वं विष्णोर्वक्त्रद्विनिःसृतम् गीता गङ्गोदकं पीत्वा पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दना पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् एकं शास्त्रं देवकी पुत्रगीतम् एको देवो देवकी पुत्र एव एको मन्त्रस्तस्य नामानि यानि कर्माप्येकं तस्य देवस्य सेवा.
So Sarva Upanishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dogdam Gita Amritam Mahat. All the Upanishads are like the cow, and the milker of the cow is Lord Shri Krishna, the son of Nanda. Arjun is the calf, the beautiful nectar of Gita is the milk, and the fortunate devotees of fine theistic intellect are the drinkers and enjoyers of that milk. So Arjun Vishad Yoga, Arjun's Yoga of Lamentation, Chapter 1 summary, or this is also called as observing the armies on the battlefield. So there are 3 personalities which are discussed in Chapter 1. That's an overview. And I'm going to ask you who these personalities are, but these are the 3 personalities, and the scene is that there is this war field between Kauravas and the Pandavas, and they all are observing it directly or indirectly, and then they have different reactions to the same scene. So let's start. This is the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. The first verse is spoken by Dhritarashtra, not by Krishna, not by Arjun, but by Dhritarashtra, who was the father of the Kauravas. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharam kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kimakurvata sanjaya. Very interesting verse, right? So it says Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Uvacha means said. So Dhritarashtra said, Dharam Kshetre Kurukshetre. So place of pilgrim, Dharam Kshetre, called as Kurukshetre, which is still there. It's still there in North India, Haryana. Samaveta Yuyutsavaha, assembled together with an intention to fight. Who is assembled together with an intention to fight? Mamakaha. Mamakaha means my sons. Pandavas Chaiva, and the sons of my brother Pandu. Kim Akurvat Sanjaya, what did they do? So they have assembled together with an intention to fight, but then he's asking, what did they do? It's a very interesting question. So we say that, right? That face is the index of the mind. So this is Dhritarashtra. This is Sanjay. Sanjay is the disciple of Vyasdev, and by Krishna's, by his spiritual master's mercy, he has this vision to see what's happening in Kurukshetra, even though they were sitting in Hastinapur, and he was able to give him the live view by his words to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was born blind. He couldn't see. Okay, so now tell me, you can write to me in the chat. I'm going to highlight the face of Dhritarashtra. Tell me what is his reaction to this. What is his face telling? What are his feelings? Yes. Please write to me in the chat. What do you think? Or if you have read the purport, then you will know that Prabhupada talks about two things. Okay, worried, confused state of mind. Okay, anxious, perplexed, tensed, confused, anxiety, terrified, concerned, curious. Curious is not a feeling. Winning the battle, anxious, winning the battle is also not a feeling. Depressed, okay. Anxious, anger. Okay, ignorance. Ignorance is not a feeling either. Doubtful and fearful. Yeah, who wrote that? Megha Goyal Mataji, I think you have read this. Yes, so very nice. Thank you. Worried, confident, thinking, worried about his own sons. Thank you so much. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, if you read the purport of first verse, he writes doubtful and fearful. He was doubtful and he was fearful. So let's discuss this verse a little bit detailed, because that's where the foundation of talks is going to be based on. So few words used in this verse, Dharam Kshetre, Kurukshetre. So in southern part of India, it is whenever there's got to be some auspicious activity, generally the ritual is to overboil the milk on the stove. Just let it overboil. I know in northern part of India, it is not considered auspicious, but in southern part, it is considered auspicious. So what it means is that Dharam Kshetre, Kurukshetre, since the temple is in the southern part, so we'll take up that culture, that Dharam Kshetre, Kurukshetre is an auspicious place. It's an auspicious place for fight. Okay, so he uses the word Dharam Kshetre for Kurukshetra. And then Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva. So Mamaka, my sons, and Pandavas Chaiva, Pandavaha means sons of Pandu. So Dhritarashtra's younger brother Pandu died at young age, right? So it's a royal family. It's not an ordinary family. And in royal family, generally as an uncle, it would have been better to take care of his of the sons of his brother also, right? It's a royal family, but then he's separating. He's separating, like when you, if you have an experience of making cottage cheese or paneer from a milk, we put lime juice. So it separates the water and the cottage cheese, right? So like that, he's separating his sons and sons of Pandu. And then the third word he's using is Kim Akurvat Sanjaya. Kim Akurvat means what did they do? So that question is very interesting. Let's say that if I give a bowl full of rasgullas to Rupa Mataji, okay, and then I ask her, I'm giving you this bowl full of rasgullas on Diwali, which just passed. What are you going to do? What will you do with the bowl full of rasgullas? You definitely can't cook it any further. What are you going to do? What is the natural first answer?
Eat.
Eat it, right?
Yeah.
So nice. Okay, thank you. Everyone awake. So eat it, right? So the scene is in the battlefield. There are so many crores of animals and crores of soldiers and weapons and everything is assembled. It definitely didn't look like a fair, didn't look like a fair. It was definitely a battlefield. But he's asking, what did they do? Means he's doubtful that because of the influence of the religious place, the virtuous Pandavas may get benefited, and then there may be a change of mind in both the parties that there's going to be no fight. So he's doubtful about it. And he's fearful also that the place is going to influence Pandavas more because they are more pious than the Kauravas. So that is what is expressed in this verse. Okay, this is a second personality introduced in this book, in first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Who is this? And who is this? People who are joining for the first time, you can write to me. Who is this? And who is this? This person, who is this? No one has written yet. No idea, ma'am. Dronacharya. Okay, one is Dronacharya. So, okay, Duryodhan, very nice. This is Duryodhan. So when Duryodhan saw the military phalanx arranged for Pandavas, he got bewildered that how can they be so expert? So he goes and speaks to his teacher, Dronacharya, like this. Oh, my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. So he's actually going and he's actually like kind of shouting at his teacher, right? That look what you have done by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. So the phalanx of the military phalanx of the Pandavas was organized by Drushtadumna, who was the son of Drupada. Now Drupada and Dronacharya were buddies in Gurukul. Okay, when they were little boys, they used to study together and they were very close friends. But then there was a misunderstanding. Hare Krishna. There was a misunderstanding between the two, Drupada and Dronacharya. And then what happened? Then after that, what happened? That Drupada actually performed a fire sacrifice to beget a son who will actually kill Dronacharya. And Dronacharya was aware of it. So Dronacharya was aware of that. And then what happened? So when Drushtadumna was bestowed or given to Dronacharya in his childhood to learn the military science, despite of knowing that Drushtadumna is going to kill me one day, Dronacharya did not hesitate to give him the knowledge. This is the heart of a Brahmana. He said, I have to die anyway, in one way or the other. Why should I hesitate from not doing my duty? So he actually gave the knowledge. And that's what Duryodhan is now criticizing Dronacharya, that by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada, he has expertly arranged. Behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. So he's criticizing. So he's a very good politician. He knows how to weigh the benefits and loss. So he was weighing that how is the arrangement in the other side. He was bewildered actually, Duryodhan, because the Pandavas were in exile, right, for 12 years, and they had just gotten back from exile. And to arrange such a big war takes a lot of time, but then they just arranged it. So he couldn't understand that how can they do that. So he's criticizing, passing over the burden, and he looks very astonished and bewildered, right? On the other hand, Duryodhan, when he starts to fight, he actually shoots an arrow to the feet of his teachers to seek his blessings. So what is his reaction? What is his reaction? His eyes are popping out of the socket. What is his reaction? You can write to me. What do you think he's feeling? Duryodhan is feeling looking at the same scene. Angry. Okay. Anyone else? Angry and scared. Angry. Feels cheated. Angry. Scared. Fear of losing the battle. Fearful. Okay. Angry and scared. Okay, so basically most of the people are saying angry, bewildered, doubtful, insecure. Yeah, all those are right. So he's basically shocked that how can this happen? And he's concerned also. Then what happens? So reaction of Duryodhan goes on from verse number 3 to verse number 11. And then everyone is going to blow their conch shells. Saghosho dhritarashtranam hridyani vradarayet na bhascha prithvim chaiva tumilo abhyanu adyayan. Blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious and thus vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So after his analysis, Krishna blows his conch shell, then Arjun blows his conch shell, then all the other Pandavas blow their conch shells. So that blowing of the conch shells is considered very uproarious and vibrating both in the sky and the earth. And Vyasdev is writing Hridyani Vradariye, means it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Such commentaries, such words are not used when it is mentioned that the Kauravas started blowing their conch shells. When Pandavas and Krishna blew their transcendental conch shell, then the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered. They got feared that, okay, now this something inauspicious is going to happen to us. So from verse 15 to 18, Arjun, Krishna, and Bhima are blowing their conch shells. These are the different names of the conch shells given from verse 15 to 18. Krishna's conch shell is called Panchajanya, Arjun's is called Devdatta, Bhima is Pondra, Yudhishthir is Anantavijaya, Nakul's conch shell is Sughosha, and Sahadev conch shell is Manipushpaka. And then there are different signs given in first chapter, which actually indicate that Arjun is going to win the war from the get-go. The different signs given in this chapter, if you analyze the chapter and read it very intricately, these are some of the signs. First is it was a Dharam Kshetra, or a very place of pilgrim, which is going to benefit a virtuous Arjun anyway. The chariot was divine. It was given to him by Agni Dev, sun god, and it had the ability to conquer all the 4 directions. Kapidhwaja, the dhwaja means flag. So Lord Hanuman was present in the flag of his chariot. As Lord Hanuman served Lord Rama in his battle against Ravan, similarly, he's going to assist Arjun in his service to Krishna and in the war of Mahabharata. Shankhanada, his blowing of the conch shell is transcendental. Gandiva, or the bow that Arjun has, is given to him by Lord Shiva. So it's called Pashupatastra. Then it was a day of Mokshada Ekadashi when the war was going to begin, and Bhagavad Gita was spoken in Mokshada Ekadashi, which is next month. Then the word Hridyani Vradarayet, which indicates that the hearts of the Kauravas was shattered, or sons of Dhritarashtra. Then Bhishma's conch shell to pacify Duryodhan. I think it's verse number 14 or 15, where Bhishma blows his conch shell to pacify Duryodhan, and Prabhupada writes in the purport that Bhishma, by blowing his conch shell, is indicating that Duryodhan has no chance of winning the war because Krishna is on the other side. So Bhagya Lakshmi, Mother Lakshmi is she's the wife of Vishnu. So wherever Krishna or Vishnu is there, she's there. So she always entails auspiciousness. And on top of everything, Rishikesha, or master of the senses, Krishna is on their side. So these are the signs which are indicated in chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita from the get-go that Arjun is going to win. Then Arjun tells, this is Arjun. Okay, now let's talk about him. So this is Arjun, and he tells Krishna to bring his rath in the middle of the 2 parties. And when he sees them, what is his reaction? What do you think? What is his reaction? I will go more close. We saw Arjun, we saw Dhritarashtra, we saw Duryodhan, and this is Arjun now. He's sad, confused, okay? Guilt, confused, unhappy, not convinced, okay? Sad and crying, not to fight against own people, confused, why are we doing this? Harassed, scared to fight, disheartened, in dilemma, disappointed, did not want to kill his own people, unwilling, not satisfied, sad and confused, disheartened. Okay, so and see Arjun. If you see Arjun's here, if you see Arjun here, You see how he looks prepared. He has helmet on the head. He has his shield on the chest. He looks quite alert, right? And he looks quite focused, and he's aiming for an arrow on the back, and he has his Kandiva bow in his hand. But once he actually observes the other party who he has to fight against, this is how he looks. His helmet has gone down. He's not on the head anymore. His arrows are coming out from their holder on the back. His Gandiva bow has slipped from his hand, and he is actually crying, right? He's crying, and he's only seeing some ill fortune to come by this fight. So when he observes that, he gives Krishna 5 reasons that I'm not going to fight this war. 4 out of 5 reasons are given in chapter 1, and the 5th reason is given in chapter 2. These are the reasons. He says in Krishna, my family is an object of my compassion, which is mostly given in first chapter, verse number 28. I'm not supposed to, kill my family. They're the object of my compassion. And then he says, no enjoyment. Okay, even if I win this war and I become a ruler, but there's going to be no family member to enjoy this with. So what is going to be the benefit of war anyway? Because there's going to be no enjoyment. This is given in verse 31 of first chapter. Then he talks about sin from verse 36 to 42 actually. That it is sinful. Actually, it is sinful. He says that to even verbally shout on an elderly person. And here I am, who is supposed to pick up an arrow and shoot it to my grandfather and my uncle and my teachers, so many of them who are elder to me. That's sinful, Krishna. I'm not going to be a part of the sin. Then destruction of family traditions. Very nice analogy, very nice flow of thought is given by Prabhupada towards the end of the chapter, where he says that if the elders of the family are slain, then there's going to be no following of the tradition, because in our families, elders teach us what to do, right? The tradition is given to us from one generation to another generation by elders. So if the elders are slain, then there's going to be no tradition. And then when there's going to be no tradition, then the women are going to become contaminated. And because of the contamination, there's going to be a production of Varna Shankara, unwanted population. And when the unwanted population will come out, then there's going to be no offering of oblations to the ancestors. There are going to be no religious principles followed. And there's whatever community and family projects we'll be doing is going to be completely unsuccessful because of this Varna Shankara. So I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to slay the elders, and I don't want to destroy the family tradition. And then tomorrow in verse number 6, second chapter, he says, I know I'm a Kshatriya. I know I'm a Kshatriya. I know I'm supposed to fight. Kshatriya means fight. And I know that that is my duty, but I'm still undecided. I don't know whether I should really do that or not. So I'm completely undecided. And that's the point where he actually surrenders to Krishna. And that's tomorrow. So whenever I read this personally, I get fully convinced that Arjun is right, that he shouldn't fight. So compassion, no enjoyment, sin, family tradition, and indecision. But tomorrow, when Krishna will speak, then we'll see what the answers are. He's going to give answer to each and every reason of Arjun's not to fight tomorrow. Okay, so some of the signs and symptoms of Arjun's compassion are written in chapter 1. Vyasdev is writing. It's a very big myth that Krishna consciousness means that there are no feelings, right? It's a myth that Krishna consciousness means no feelings. But actually, Krishna consciousness means there are so many feelings. Vyasdev is taking account that his limbs were quivering, Arjun's mouth was drying up, his whole body was trembling, the hair on the body was standing on end because he was only foreseeing the ill in the family. His hands, the Gandiva bow was slipping, the skin was burning, he was unable to stand on his legs due to impatience, and he said, I'm forgetting myself, my mind is reeling due to weakness of the heart, and he only sees the causes of misfortune. So which one can you relate to? Give it a thought today. Compassion, no enjoyment, sin, destruction of family traditions, and indecision. These are the 5 reasons that Arjun gives to Krishna, I'm not going to fight. So this is a summary of what we discussed today. First chapter, first verse, Dhritarashtra speaks, and the key word is Kim Akurvat. He wants to know what happened on the battlefield. Did the war really happen? or the war was called off because the place is so auspicious, because Krishna is there, and because Pandavas are so virtuous. And then Duryodhan's fear is expressed in verse 2 to 11, Mahatim Chamum Vyodham, where he points out to Dronacharya that Drishtadyumna has organized the military filing so expertly. Then different blowing of conches from both the sides is described from verse 12 to 19, Hridyani Vradarayet, shattered the hearts of sons of Dhritarashtra when Krishna and 5 Pandavas blew their conch shells. Then Arjun's observation from verse 20 to 27, Gandivam Samshate Hastan. And then Arjun starts giving reasons after observing the army on the other side that he's not going to fight. And 5 reasons, 4 out of 5 are given from verse 28 to 46. Apratikaram ashastram. Tomorrow, I'm going to ask you a question before we start the chapter. Rupa Mataji might take the class. So the question is that Krishna speaks one verse in chapter 1. What is that verse? Krishna speaks one verse in chapter 1. Tell me what is that verse tomorrow. Okay, so let's watch one Prabhupada's video. Today is Prabhupada disappearance day. Let me stop.